Join us for a deep dive into EMR.
Everything you need to know about the method that is revolutionizing the world of trauma.
Imagine like waking up every morning and instead of that refreshed feeling, you're hit with this weight, this heavy weight of something from the past, a trauma. It can really drag you down, and it's something so many people deal with. But what if there was a way to heal from that trauma? And here's the thing, without having to actually relive those painful memories. That's what we're diving into today. We're going deep into the story of Yair and how he found some serious relief from PTSD through a therapy you might not be familiar with, eye movement release, or EMR for short. And understandably, this left him struggling with PTSD, dealing with the emotional weight of it all. And get this, he even started experiencing bedwetting as a result of the trauma. It just goes to show how deeply trauma can impact, well, everything, your mind, your body.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, trauma can manifest in so many ways, and it's often these kind of, I guess you could say, hidden symptoms like bedwetting in Yair's case that really highlight how pervasive the impact of trauma can be.
And, one of the things that really stood out to me was that Yair was totally resistant to, traditional talk therapy. The idea of having to sit there and describe that night, relive those terrifying moments, it filled him with dread. Can you talk a little bit about that kind of resistance to traditional therapy?
Oh, it's totally understandable. For many people who've gone through trauma, the idea of having to revisit those memories in therapy, it's incredibly daunting. It can feel like you're almost like opening up an old wound that hasn't quite healed. It can be really scary to think about.
Right. It's like, why dig back into the pain if you don't have to? And that's where EMR seems to come in. It's considered content-free. So from what I understand, you don't have to actually sit down and recount the specifics of what happened, the traumatic event itself, which, that seems like a huge difference from how we usually think about therapy.
Oh, it absolutely is. And that's honestly a big part of what makes EMR so unique. Instead of focusing on every detail of the trauma, EMR focuses more on shifting, I guess you could say, shifting the way your brain and body are holding on to the emotional charge of those memories. It's more about working with your subconscious rather than, trying to drag up every detail consciously.
Okay, so let me get this straight. We've got this therapy, EMR, and it's saying it can help you work through trauma, but you don't even have to talk about the actual trauma. It almost sounds, too good to be true. How does just moving your eyes around help with something as intense and deep as PTSD?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
Yeah, and to be honest, we don't have all the answers yet, but we are starting to get a better understanding of how trauma kind of leaves its mark on the brain. And from that, we're learning how something like EMR can actually step in and help.
Okay, yeah. Walk me through this, because this is the part where it gets really fascinating for me, this whole idea.
All right, so picture this, right? A traumatic experience happens, and it's like this frozen point gets created in your brain. The memory's there, but so is all the fear you felt, that sense of helplessness, all the raw emotion of that moment, and it all gets kind of locked in place.
So it's like this vivid snapshot in time, but it's a snapshot you can't escape.
Exactly. You got it. And the thing is frozen points, they can stick around and they can get triggered so easily, even way after, the actual event is over, long after. So you're left dealing with these overwhelming feelings and reactions,
right,
even if logically you're safe now. So this is where EMR comes in, those back and forth eye movements, the what they call bilateral stimulation. It's like they help your brain unfreeze those memories and start processing them in a different way.
So you're saying that instead of just being stuck with that overwhelming snapshot, it's like EMR is helping your brain finally process everything, but in this safer, less intense way.
Yeah, you got it. That's a great way to put it. And the research is really backing this up. It's showing that EMR can really help reduce the intensity of the emotions tied to those memories. And here's the thing. It's not about erasing the memory completely. It's more about changing how your brain and your body too respond to that memory.
I see. So it's almost like hitting the reset button on how your brain reacts to that trauma. And so is that what happened with Yair? Did he feel that reset?
Well, like a lot of people when they try something new, he was pretty skeptical at first. And I get it, right? You're going through something as serious as PTSD, and someone telling you to follow their finger with your eyes, it's definitely not what you picture when you think trauma therapy.
Yeah, no kidding. It's got to feel a little strange at first, for sure.
Right. But the thing is, and we've said this, but it's important, a huge part of EMR is that it is content-free, meaning Yair didn't have to actually describe the home invasion. He didn't have to relive those terrifying moments, and for him, honestly, that in itself was huge. Just having that pressure off was a relief.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So he's going through these EMR sessions. What were some of the first signs, would you say, that things were actually changing for him?
It was gradual, like most things. But he started noticing his anxiety wasn't as bad. He wasn't having as many nightmares. But then, and this is really interesting, the bedwetting he'd been dealing with ever since the home invasion, it started to get better.
Wow. I mean, that's a pretty powerful sign that something's shifting, Like, that's his body, his physical response to the trauma. It's incredible that EMR could have such a real, tangible effect like that. Do we know why that happened? Was it just, like, the overall reduction in stress and anxiety, or is there something more to it?
It could be more nuanced than that. Remember those frozen points we talked about? Well, it's possible that EMR was actually helping to release that trapped trauma response, not just in Yair's mind, but in his nervous system, too.
Oh, wow. So in a way, it's like his body was finally able to catch up to the fact that the danger had passed.
Yeah, exactly. It's like his body was finally able to let go. And honestly, that's what makes Yair's case so compelling. It wasn't just about stopping the bedwetting. It was a sign that, on a much deeper level, the healing was happening.
So it's like with Yair's case, it sounds like it became about so much more than just treating that one very specific symptom, right?
Yeah.
It was really about healing on this whole other level, this deeper, more holistic level.
You said it. As Yair kept going with the EMR therapy, he started noticing these improvements in other areas of his life.
Yeah.
Areas you wouldn't think at first glance had anything to do with the home invasion.
Really? Like, what kinds of things? What else started changing for him?
Well, his anger, for one. Like, after the home invasion, he was understandably angry, right? But that started to lessen. And he was able to handle his fear better, too. But here's the big one, and this is huge. He started letting go of the self-blame he'd been carrying around.
That's so common, though, isn't it? Like, with trauma, we blame ourselves, even if, logically, we know it wasn't our fault.
It's so true. And it's often overlooked.
Yeah.
But trauma, it doesn't just impact, like, one part of you. It weaves its way into how you think, how you feel, how you act, even your physical health. So the fact that Yair experienced this ripple effect of positive change from EMR, well, it's pretty telling.
It really is. It makes you rethink, like, the whole way we approach trauma recovery. And I keep coming back to this, but it seems like that content-free aspect of EMR that was so key for Yair, it allowed him to, like, access those tough memories, start to process them, but without having to relive them in his mind consciously.
Exactly. And for folks who find traditional talk therapy just too intense, too triggering, EMR offers this, like, gentler way forward. It's like this whole other path to healing.
It really is. As we wrap up here, something's been on my mind. So if EMR can be this effective for trauma, do you think there could be other content-free approaches out there, like approaches that could help with things like negative thought patterns, anxiety, maybe even addiction? Just wondering if you've heard anything about other avenues being explored.
Wow, that's a great question. And you know what? It's something that researchers are looking into. There's still so much we don't know about the brain, right? Like how it processes experiences. But the success we've seen with EMR, it really does open up some intriguing possibilities.
It really does. Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive into EMR therapy. We covered a lot, learned about its unique approach to healing trauma, how it's different from traditional therapy, and its potential to create lasting change. And the best part, no need to relive those painful experiences. It's a good reminder that there's always hope for healing, even when those old wounds run deep. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.